Hi, it's Kim Butler. Today, Todd Langford and I are going to do a quick demo on the calculator known as future requirements. And this is a fun one to use for younger people. It can be valuable in other circumstances as well. Todd, why don't you give us a demo?
Sure. So this calculator can be very dangerous, so we need to be careful with it because it can be very depressing, but it's factual, and I think the truth needs to be out there, and people need to understand that. So it really comes down to you to present this in a way that's appropriate for your clients, to not depress them, but to motivate them to understand what the looming problem might be out there in the future and this idea of retirement. So if we look at this, and we're going to take a 36-year-old. So we're going to look out 30 years, which gets them to 65. So in this case, we'll have $150,000 of current income, no existing assets. Let's put total taxes at 30%, lifestyle at 30%, and debt service at 30%. And so this is probably very optimistic in today's society to have somebody saving that remaining 10% every year. But let's look at that in that light. Now, this next question that it's asking is the percent of current income needed for retirement. So it's this idea that we can live on less in the future than we're living on right now. And one of the things that I've heard is, well, if you think you can live on less in the future, then you need to be able to live on less now so that you'll have that money in the future, right? It's funny how people can think about living on less in the future, and yet they're spending everything they're making right now. But it helps the numbers. It helps them feel better, right? If they can reduce this number greatly. I would say that if we put 80% in there, I think that would still be a huge challenge on the individual to do it. But let's put in 80%. So what we're saying is that 10% of what they're currently making, in this case, $150,000, so that savings amount starts at $15,000, that it needs to, over the next 30 years, create $120,000 a year worth of income so that that is 80% of what they're currently making today. How many years until retirement? What we said was 30 years, so it's our 36-year-old out to age 65 is actually 30 years. And now let's look at inflation. So let's say inflation is at 3%.
I've done something to it. There we go.
At 3%, then what we see is that the way this calculator works, it actually takes that $15,000 and assumes that the individual is disciplined enough to also increase that savings each year by that same 3% rate. So the savings is increasing, and with that increasing savings, we need to have it grow so that it's not throwing off just $120,000, but it's throwing off $291,271 per year, so that it equates to 80% of our current income after inflation. So that's going to be a shocker for most people that it's going to take that kind of money just to replace what they're currently doing. But yet you can look back in time and see that track has always been the same, that increase across time. Now, this next one is saying, what is the annual withdrawal percentage? So this is, many of you may be familiar with the Trinity study, and it's the idea of how much money can I pull off the asset and have it last. The numbers a few years ago were more in the 5% plus range. Now I think 3% is probably going to be on the high side. So let's use 3% on our annual withdrawal amount. And what it shows is that to be able to throw off $291,271, we're going to need an asset worth $9.7 million. So that 3% of it is $291,271. So how much would we have to earn? This is the next question there that it's asking, the earnings rate. How much will we have to earn on our 10% of our income growing over that 30 years so that it creates that $9.7 million? And we can put some guesses in here and have some fun. So let's put in 5%. Well, 5% only gets us to $1.5 million. I didn't quite get it. What does 7% do? How about 9%? 11%? Wow. Click on the A. The A there is for automatic, and it will calculate exactly how much we'd have to do to get there. And it shows us 15.29% every single year on our 10% of our current earnings, growing over time to reach that $9.7 million, which would give us $291,000 if we were only pulling off 3% of the account every year to live on. Wow. So the next question is, how many years until mortality? So from our current 36-year-old, if we went out to age 90, then that would be 50 years until retirement.
Math is off. 36 to 90, 55 years.
Thank you. Retirement earnings rate. Again, we can get into that same cycle of what will we have to do to make that last, and actually at this point still pass the same amount in today's dollars. So if we put 5% there, it shows us we'd have $13 million left, but in actual value, after inflation, it'd be the equivalent of 2.5 million. So it's actually a reduction in the amount of assets even across that time frame. Go ahead and click on the A there, Kim, as well. And we get to 6.19% is what we'd have to earn during the retirement phase, which again is pretty substantial. Most people, when you get into the retirement phase, they get a little bit more conservative, knowing the danger of losing any of that principal. And it does show us, yes, we'd end up with $20 million that has a $4 million value based on today's dollars with inflation. But we may get to a place and say, you know what, we're just going to have to consume the account. And if you do that, you can turn that on. And then it shows, hey, as long as we plan this exactly right, we're going to be out of money. At 90, we could get by with, less than 1% per year. And so it gives us a place that we can play around with it and say, well, maybe we don't earn the full 15.29%. So we could turn off the A there. And then we could change that to say 8%, which is a pretty good chunk, but then we'd have to earn 15.94 during the retirement phase. So what we really see here is that based on this 10% earnings, we can't get there unless we get lucky. And I don't think luck is the way to do strategies for our future. And so I think one of the things that this is going to show you is that we need to stretch that time out. That when people are living as long as they are, the idea of retirement at 65 is, for most people, really not reasonable. So it's a fun calculator to play with. Be careful that you don't depress your client, but instead use it to motivate them to be doing all they can to move out into the future.
All right. Thanks, Todd. So if you are curious what happens when you change the years to retirement or play with these various interest rates, you can actually download the entire suite of Truth Concepts calculators for free for 10 days on the download tab on the Truth Concepts website. Take a look, have some fun with it, and then join us for our 3-day truth trainings to learn, what does Paul Harvey say? The rest of the story.